The National Economic Council NEC meeting chaired by the Vice President, Senator Kashim Shettima, with governors of the 36 states of the Federation, Director of the Nigerian Governors Forum, as well as stakeholders from World Bank, agencies of government, councils of chambers, and the State House in Abuja, reviewed palliative packages for Nigerians following the removal of fuel subsidy and the recent hike in petrol prices up to 617 naira per litre. As a result of market forces. Speaking after the deliberations, the Vice President read the resolutions of the Council, noting mass deployment of CNG-powered vehicles and establishment of auto-gas conversion plant and kits in all states, proposed provision of cost of living allowances, and also to be paid to civil servants in both the state and federal civil service, amongst others. Now, joining me to talk more about this and understand what this impact would be, of course, on the masses, I'm being joined from Abuja via Zoom by the Managing Director and Chief Executive Officer of Dignity Finance and Investment Limited, a top member of the Abuja Chamber of Commerce and Industry, Dr. Chijioke Ikechukwu. Dr. Ikechukwu, it's been a while. It's good to see you.
It's good to see you too, Tolu. My pleasure.
Yes. Now, let's start the discussion, and let me ask you first and start this way. Do you think that the move by the National Economic Council is at par with what is expected? Some are saying that swift reaction, we see the moves coming immediately after these shocks of which Nigerians are going through at the moment. First, tell us your understanding of all of these decisions, the meetings, the moves, and before we now go to implementation of some of these projected resolutions.
Firstly, let me commend the NEC for having this meeting quite on time to be able to address the issues that are biting seriously within this period. When you see the faces of all Nigerians, whether high or low in the society, everybody is being affected by the very high cost of living. Of course, the meeting became very necessary that it took place when it took place yesterday. But I still have a few issues with the meeting and with the outcome of the meeting. Firstly, the meeting did not address the fundamental issues that have actually caused the issues affecting Nigerians. And that the fundamental issues are the fact that the exchange rate is so high, and the question of what would make the exchange rate so high. That's number one fundamental issue. The next one is the fact that the fuel pricing is also very high. What has made it so high? Because if all these things have been resolved, we won't be talking about having to have any kind of palliative for anybody. Right now, we are a country producing oil, and we are not saying anything about what has happened to our refineries. Because if these refineries were working, we'll be talking about some of these things today. So we need to actually take a drastic decision on how to make sure our refineries work in order for the price and cost of oil to really come down in order for Nigerians to start benefiting from that. That's number one. Number two, what are those things that are making our exchange rate so high? Because it is with the exchange rate that is high that the cost of petroleum product is high. The cost is so high in the country. So what decisions have we taken to ensure that our exchange rate gets low? That should be a total package. Part of it should be all encompassing in this package before we start talking about the palliative end. The exchange rate has been high because of the revenue base that we say is not high enough. And what is actually causing it is the fact that we're not producing our oil to the installed capacity or even approved capacity by OPEC. So what are those things that are causing the oil not to be produced up to that estimation? Of course, we know we're talking about the oil theft and all the things about leakages and all that and all that. So we need to address those things so that, because palliative and all the things of funds for infrastructure for states and all that, these are all reactive things, but we need to address the fundamental issues that are causing some of this. Because if we do, then they may not even eventually have need for palliative. But having said this, I also have issues in the fact that some of these infrastructural funds are going to the states through the states and through the governors. The issue I have there is the fact that some of these funds, we know how funds that have gone to state governments in the past have been treated and have been handled. Eventually, because these governors cannot be supervised and cannot be even controlled by the federal, they are an autonomous part of government, and they can actually deal with these funds at their discretion. And if it is at their discretion, you cannot query, you cannot ask, how did you use this money? And of course, we know the fact that, yes, their state assemblies are supposed to be doing these functions, but you know how the state assemblies are being put together in all these states. So these are some of the worries I have when we say some of these things are going to go. And of course, also talking about this, the palliatives that are going to be given to states, and you're going to be determining this using the state social register. Again, who is going to create these registers in the states? You know how all the various registers in the states have been, in the country, have been created in the past. You're going to be seeing names emanate from everywhere, even names of people who do not exist emanating. And so these are the little problems I have had, trying to assimilate all the things being said and all the palliatives. So the question is, how will all these things actually make better the life of you and I and every other person on the street? I do not see any immediate way to resolve these difficulties that Nigerians are going to have almost immediately. So in my opinion, I thought we should be looking at areas where institutions, where the government will have to ensure that parents whose children are going to school, primary, because these are things that actually consume money out of parents right now. Whose children are going to school, primary school, secondary school, be part of university. Okay, this time you're not going to pay a social amount of money. We are actually, because instead of putting all these monies into infrastructure to states, infrastructure funds to states and all those things, we can actually say medical care for this period of time. People go to hospitals, you don't pay anything, and go to schools, you don't pay anything. These are things that are really creating problems for families.
But before I move further,
yes.
Before I move further, I wanted us to talk around minimum wage. With some already putting figures to what we might expect. And my question to you from that end would be what implication that would have for inflation. That is what I'm actually even looking at the moment.
Yes.
Because you can even see that the governors were so, I don't know the word, that economic drive around them, that they understood that sharing 1.9 trillion naira would just put a lot of money into circulation and would fuel inflation. And they decided to go on with 907 billion naira, which they shared yesterday. Clearly makes economic sense. But what do you make of the impact of all of this monies on the economy, on the naira, on inflation? Yes.
Okay, yeah. Before I even go to the impact it will have on inflation, let us even look at the population of Nigerians that are civil servants, that are working for government, who are going to be beneficiaries of this increase of this minimum wage. Of course, we have a good number of Nigerians that are not civil servants. And so even if you increase the minimum wage, these other Nigerians are not going to benefit from them because they are not directly connected with government to the extent that they're going to benefit from the salary that's going to be increased. Having said this, we need to also identify those things that can benefit those ones that are not working for government, because we have a very high population in that area. But of course, it is also obvious that when these monies go into the system and the salaries are increased in the form of increase in minimum wage, we are going to have a lot of money in circulation. People are going to start buying more and more things. And of course, we expect that this will add to some other conditions that are affecting and increasing the inflation rate. So the impact there is there, but of course, that also means that people obviously need that kind of increase in salaries to cushion some of this. But that is only a particular percentage of Nigerians, because a good number of them are not working. So We agree that it's going to affect the inflation rate. If you remember what happened in the 70s, in Udoji, around the Udoji panel recommendations when salaries were doubled. And of course, what that cost was very up to 100% increase in inflation rate. And so we do not want such things to happen again. And that is just why we preach against such increases that will only benefit the civil servants.
Well, government is also forward-looking. If you look at this whole adoption of CNG, gas to power, you know what that is at this time, because the price of PMS will continue to fluctuate. We don't control it. Some global issues, more than what Nigeria can manage. But looking very quickly to adopt CNG, cleaner energy, is something that many have agreed that is a step in the right direction. Dr. Okechukwu, how does that come to you?
Yes, it's obviously a step in the right direction. Of course, it is a long-term thing. It is that which cannot be achieved in the short run, like today, tomorrow. Of course, the plan and arrangement for it has to start right now in order for us to start getting the benefits of it. In fact, I had thought about it on my own personally to imagine that this is that which is going to remove all the burdens of petrol and petroleum products from us. When everybody goes on clean energy and drives, if everybody drives a car that does not use petrol, obviously this price of petrol is going to crash and they won't have need for them. So I think that's a very major, very good alternative. But while we are considering that as an alternative, we also have to consider the fact that our power sector must be very active in order for us to always have enough electricity to charge these things. And of course, the auto gas thing is also a very good alternative. And do we have the supply of that? Of course, we also know that recently we had the gas price rise up so much at the time, but I hear it has come down. So these are some of the things. Before we go into clean energy to power our vehicles, we need to ensure that the electricity is there and then it is regular and it can actually power electric cars. So these are very good developments that are meant for the long run. But in the short run, all we need to do is just to get the ball rolling so that we can achieve the results at a given time in the future.
Dr. Okechukwu, I'm looking at wrapping up this discussion now. Productivity remains very important for us to be able to get in more FX. We need to produce more. What do you think the states now at this time can do to support the federal government so that we can balance this trade at the end of the day?
I have always advocated for the fact that states should be run like SBUs, strategic business units, to the extent that you just know you are incurring expenses and you have to make profit. And all states have opportunities of taking advantage of those things that they have competitive advantage over other states. Every state is blessed with one thing or the other. So we are not taking competitive advantage of what we have to be able to grow our economy from the state level, because it's when every state is growing, just like we have in some other very developed countries. States are almost autonomous in terms of driving their own businesses and productivity. So when we have this, we have excess of production coming from anybody producing cocoa, excess of production coming from any state producing palm oil, and for those one doing some other things, they are doing sesame seed and all that. You see that all of these things will just dovetail into a very big basket for the country. But when states rely so much on what comes from the federal, it is really unfortunate. And that is just why productivity is not being generated from the various states. We need to harness that in order for us to have enough coming from the states for the people of Nigeria.
I must thank you so much, Dr. Chijioke Okechukwu there. He's Chief Executive Officer and Managing Director at Dignity Finance Investment Limited. Also a top member of the Abuja Chamber of Commerce and Industry. Thank you so much. Have a great weekend.
Thank you very much.